The traveler on the path of truth first walks with al-Yaqin. This is the lamp of knowledge. It illuminates the road but does not warm it. Then he sees with al-Yaqin. The veil is lifted, the heart becomes a witness. But the truth does not end there. The end of the path is Haqq al-Yaqin. There is no more knowing and no more seeing. For the one who falls into the fire does not describe the fire, he becomes the fire. Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi. There is a moment, my friend, when knowledge no longer satisfies the hunger of the heart, when understanding feels thin, almost fragile compared to the depth you sense calling you from within. This is the moment Rumi is pointing toward. Not a rejection of knowledge, not a denial of seeing, but a quiet invitation to go further than both. Rumi's words do not speak to the casual listener. They speak to the one who has already tasted the sweetness of seeking and now feels an unnameable restlessness. In his view, the spiritual path is not a straight line, but a deepening descent into reality itself. He describes 3 stations of certainty, not as abstract theories, but lived states of being. Ilm al-Yaqin, Ayn al-Yaqin, and Haqq al-Yaqin are not concepts to memorize. They are transformations the soul must undergo. Ilm al-Yaqin is the beginning. It is the certainty that comes through learning, through listening, through reading sacred texts and sitting at the feet of teachers. It is the stage most seekers recognize first because it feels safe. You learn the names, the definitions, the structures of belief. You study the Quran, the Hadith, the stories of the prophets and the saints. You hear about love, unity, annihilation, and return. And this knowledge is not useless. Rumi never dismisses it. He calls it a lamp. A lamp is essential in the darkness. Without it, the road would be invisible. Ilm al-Yaqin protects you from ignorance, from superstition, from losing yourself in fantasy. It teaches you discipline, adab, humility before truth. It reminds you that this path has been walked before, that you are not inventing God but remembering Him. Yet a lamp, no matter how bright, does not warm the frozen heart. You can stand next to it shivering and still understand its light. Many seekers remain here without realizing it. They collect spiritual information the way others collect wealth. They can explain Tawheed, Fana, Baqa, and Marifa with precision. They can quote verses and poems effortlessly. But when life shakes them, when loss arrives, when love breaks them open, their knowledge flickers. Rumi warns us gently, illumination is not transformation. In the Masnavi, Rumi often tells stories of people who mistake description for experience. In one famous teaching, he compares the scholar who has never loved to someone who reads about honey without ever tasting it. You may know its color, its texture, its chemical composition, but your tongue remains untouched. Ilm al-Yaqin is knowing about honey. It is not yet sweetness. Then comes Ayn al-Yaqin. This is the certainty of seeing. Something shifts here. The seeker no longer relies only on borrowed understanding. The veil thins. The heart begins to witness what the mind only knew in theory. Prayer changes. Silence deepens. The Quran speaks differently. Verses that once sounded poetic now feel personal, almost intimate. You are no longer merely learning about God. You are encountering signs of Him everywhere. Rumi points to this stage as a revelation of the heart. The Arabic word ayn means eye, but not the physical eye alone. It is the inner eye, the eye of insight. At this level, faith becomes lived awareness. You start to see divine wisdom unfolding even in hardship. You recognize patterns, subtle guidance, hidden mercy. The world becomes symbolic. A wind is no longer just wind, it is a message. A night is no longer empty, it is a womb of meaning. Many of the great Sufis lived and taught from this station. It is said of Junaid of Baghdad that his words carried weight because his seeing was clear. He did not speak from speculation, but from witnessing. When such a person speaks about patience, you feel steadiness. When they speak about love, you feel expansion. This is al-Yaqin at work. Yet even here, Rumi says, the truth does not end. This is perhaps the most unsettling part of his teaching, because al-Yaqin feels complete. Seeing feels like arrival, but Rumi insists that seeing still implies distance. There is still a subtle eye who witnesses the fire and says, "This is fire." Haqq al-Yaqin dissolves that distance. Haqq is not just truth. Haqq is one of the names of God. Haqq al-Yaqin is certainty through truth itself. Here, the language of stages begins to fail, because this is not a state you can stand in and examine. This is not knowledge you possess. This is annihilation into reality. Rumi's metaphor is precise and merciless. The one who falls into the fire does not describe it, he becomes the fire. This is fana, not as an idea, but as an existential event. The self that wanted to know, that wanted to see, that wanted certainty, is consumed. What remains is not emptiness, but fullness beyond identity. In this station, love is no longer something you feel toward God. Love is what you are, because the separation that allowed you and God to appear as two has vanished. Rumi's own life reflects this transformation. Before Shams of Tabriz, Rumi was a respected scholar, a jurist, a teacher of al-Yaqin. After Shams, his world burned, not intellectually, but existentially. Shams did not give him new information. He shattered the distance between knowing and being. That fire gave birth to the Masnavi, not as literature, but as overflow. In Sufi understanding, Haqq al-Yaqin is dangerous to speak about because the ego quickly wants to claim it. This is why the masters emphasize humility and silence. As it is said by one of the great teachers, when the sea enters the cup disappears, only the sea remains. You may ask, my friend, what does this mean for you, living in the noise of modern life, surrounded by speed, distraction, and endless information? It means that the path Rumi describes is not historical, it is happening now. Every time you confuse spiritual content with spiritual transformation, you are being invited to go deeper. Every time knowledge comforts your mind but leaves your heart cold, the lamp is telling you its limit.
al-Yaqin teaches you where to walk. al-Yaqin shows you what you are walking toward. Haqq al-Yaqin takes your feet away and carries you. The danger is not knowledge. The danger is stopping at knowledge and calling it arrival. Rumi's compassion is that he does not shame the seeker, he guides him. He says, first walk with knowledge, then see with the heart, and finally disappear into what you were seeking all along. This is not an escape from the world, it is a deeper entry into reality. The one who reaches Haqq al-Yaqin returns, not as a preacher of concepts, but as a presence. Their words heal not because they are clever, but because they are true. And perhaps the most important thing Rumi is whispering to you is this: if you feel restless, if you feel that something is missing, even after learning so much, this is not a failure. It is a sign that the fire is calling you closer. If we listen carefully to Rumi, we notice that he never presents these stages as achievements to be conquered. He presents them as unveilings that happen when the seeker stops clinging. This is why so many people misunderstand the path. They try to reach Haqq al-Yaqin the way one reaches a destination on a map. But Rumi is clear. You do not arrive at the fire by walking faster. You arrive by letting yourself burn. In the Masnavi, there are numerous stories that revolve around this tension between knowing and becoming. In one well-known teaching from the early volumes, Rumi tells of a man who learned all the rules of swimming on land. He studied the movements, memorized the techniques, even taught others how to swim. But when he finally fell into the river, none of his knowledge kept him afloat. Only surrender to the water did. This story is not a criticism of learning. It is a warning against mistaking preparation for immersion. Al-Yaqin often feels like awakening, and in many ways it is. The seeker begins to see how divine wisdom flows through opposites. Pain and joy stop appearing as enemies. Loss becomes instruction. Silence becomes louder than speech. At this stage, many people feel spiritually alive for the first time. They feel guided, protected, accompanied, and this is beautiful, but it is still not the end. Rumi hints that even spiritual experiences can become veils. The sweetness of witnessing can turn into attachment. The seeker begins to love the state more than the truth behind it. This is where subtle pride enters. The ego no longer says, "I know," but whispers, "I see." And this whisper is more dangerous because it sounds humble.
True masters were deeply aware of this trap. It is said that Bayezid Bastami, when overwhelmed by states of spiritual expansion, would pray for contraction instead. Not because he rejected closeness to God, but because he feared loving the experience more than the source. This fear itself was wisdom. Haqq al-Yaqin does not feel like ecstasy, it feels like disappearance. There is no one left to celebrate. The fire does not congratulate the moth is gone. Rumi's language here is deliberate. Fire is not symbolic of comfort. Fire destroys forms. It consumes identities. It leaves no room for spectatorship. This is why Haqq al-Yaqin cannot be spoken about directly. Any sentence about it immediately turns it into an object, and Haqq al-Yaqin is precisely the collapse of objecthood. In Sufi psychology, this is the station where the nafs loses its final disguises. Earlier, the ego wanted control. Later, it wanted understanding. Then it wanted spiritual insight. Now even insight must die. What remains is not ignorance, but a knowing without a knower. This is why Rumi says there is no more knowing and no more seeing. Knowing implies distance. Seeing implies separation. Fire implies unity. At this point, the seeker does not say, "I trust God." Trust is no longer an act, it is reality itself. There is no anxiety about outcomes because there is no separate will demanding them. This is not passivity, it is alignment. Action still happens, but without inner resistance. Historically, those who tasted this station lived ordinary lives outwardly. They worked, taught, married, traveled, but inwardly they were empty mirrors. Whatever passed through them reflected the divine without distortion. This is why their presence transformed others more than their words. Rumi himself exemplified this. After the burning encounter with Shams, he did not withdraw from the world. He returned to it differently. His poetry was not a performance, it was a necessity. The fire overflowed as language, rhythm, and movement. The whirling of the sema is not dance, it is embodiment of Haqq al-Yaqin. The body moves because there is no longer a self controlling it. You may wonder how one prepares for such annihilation. The paradox is that you cannot prepare directly. Preparation belongs to ilm al-Yaqin. Witnessing belongs to ayn al-Yaqin. Haqq al-Yaqin happens when both exhaust themselves. But there are signs along the way. One sign is a growing intolerance for insincerity, especially within yourself. Another is a softening toward others, even those who harm you. Another is silence becoming nourishing rather than empty. Another is prayer losing its transactional nature. You stop asking for things and start offering yourself. Rumi often uses the image of the reed flute to describe this state. The reed makes music only because it has been hollowed out. Its lament is beautiful because it has been cut from the reed bed. Pain carved space for breath. Without emptiness, there is no sound. Modern life constantly pushes you toward filling yourself. More information, more stimulation, more identity. The Sufi path invites the opposite: less, fewer claims, fewer certainties, more presence, more listening, more trust. This does not mean rejecting modern life. It means not being owned by it. You can use technology, knowledge, and structure while remaining inwardly free. Freedom here does not mean doing whatever you want. It means no longer being enslaved by wanting. Rumi's genius is that he never romanticizes the fire. He knows it terrifies the ego. This is why he speaks gently, poetically, indirectly. He lets the heart recognize what the mind resists. When he says the one who falls into the fire becomes the fire, he is not inviting recklessness. He is inviting courage rooted in love. Love is the key that opens this door. Not emotional love, but ontological love. Love as the force that dissolves boundaries. Love as the reason separation cannot last. It is said that when asked about the end of the path, one of the great Sufis replied, "When you no longer ask about the path." This is not dismissal, it is fulfillment.
If you feel fear reading these words, this is natural. The ego fears annihilation the way darkness fears dawn. But the heart knows something else. The heart recognizes home. Rumi's message to you is not to abandon learning or seeking. It is to let them mature. Let knowledge ripen into seeing. Let seeing ripen into being. And let being disappear into truth. The fire is not your enemy. It is your origin calling you back. When the fire has done its work, something remains. This is often misunderstood. Many imagine that annihilation means disappearance into nothingness, a loss of humanity, a withdrawal from life. Rumi never taught this. The Sufi path does not end in absence, it ends in return. This return is known as Baqa, subsistence through the truth. Baqa is not a stage that comes after Haqq al-Yaqin in a linear sense. It is what flows naturally when the burning is complete. The self that once claimed ownership has vanished, but existence continues. Eating happens, speaking happens, walking happens, loving happens. The difference is subtle and immense. There is no longer a separate me behind these actions. Rumi often reminds us that the goal is not to escape the world, but to be free within it. After the fire, the seeker does not float above life. He stands more firmly in it, but without inner conflict. This is why the great Sufis were often deeply grounded, practical, and compassionate. Their spirituality did not make them fragile, it made them clear. In this return, knowledge comes back too, but transformed. Al-Yaqin reappears as wisdom rather than accumulation. Words are used but lightly. Teaching happens but without ambition. Guidance is offered but without control. The one who has burned no longer needs to convince. Presence itself becomes the message.
Rumi's Masnavi is filled with this returning wisdom. Although born from fire, it is remarkably balanced. He tells stories of merchants, kings, animals, lovers, and fools. Why? Because Baka does not live in abstraction, it lives in ordinary moments. The market, the home, the road, the night prayer. Everything becomes a place of remembrance. There's a story in the Masnavi where a man searches everywhere for a treasure, only to discover it buried beneath his own house. Rumi uses this story to remind the seeker that the journey outward was necessary, but the return inward is the fulfillment. You had to walk the path to realize you never left the beloved. This is why the true danger on the path is not losing yourself, it is refusing to lose yourself. False mysticism clings to specialness. It feeds on experiences, visions, and claims. True tasawwuf dissolves all claims. It leaves you ordinary, simple, and deeply human. A real Sufi does not announce himself. He is recognized by his mercy, his patience, his ability to listen. He does not escape pain, but he does not dramatize it either. Pain becomes part of the teaching. Joy becomes part of the teaching. Silence becomes part of the teaching. In modern life, this teaching is more urgent than ever. You are surrounded by noise, identity, constant comparison. You are encouraged to define yourself endlessly. The Sufi path invites you to undefine yourself, not to become empty in a hollow way, but to become available. Availability is the essence of Baka, available to truth, available to love, available to the moment as it is, not as you wish it to be. This availability creates an inner stillness that no external chaos can shake. You may ask how to live this without withdrawing from responsibilities. Rumi's answer would be simple. Do what is in front of you with sincerity. The fire is not somewhere else. It is in how you speak, how you listen, how you forgive, how you pray, how you endure uncertainty. When Rumi says, "The one who falls into the fire becomes the fire," he is also saying that the one who returns becomes warmth. Fire that burns selfishness becomes warmth that gives life. This is the sign of true realization. Others feel safe around you. Others feel seen. Others feel less alone. This warmth is not sentimental. It does not promise comfort. It offers truth with gentleness. It knows when to speak and when to remain silent. It knows that not every heart is ready for fire, but every heart needs light.
You, my friend, are somewhere on this path already. No one drawn to these words is at the beginning. The longing itself is proof of proximity. Do not rush. Do not compare your journey to another's. Do not force experiences. Walk with knowledge. See with the heart. And when the time comes, trust the fire. The fire does not arrive as destruction. It arrives as invitation, often disguised as loss, confusion, or longing. If you meet it with patience, it will not take anything real from you. It will only take what was never truly yours. Remember this: God is not at the end of the path. God is the path, walking you. When knowing exhausts itself, when seeing dissolves, what remains is not darkness. What remains is intimacy beyond language. Rumi did not write to impress you. He wrote to wake you. His words are not explanations, they are doorways. Step through them slowly. Let them work on you. Let them undo you where undoing is needed. And when you return, as you will, return gently. Carry less, love more,
Speak truth when necessary. Be silent when words would only add noise. If this journey speaks to something deep inside you, know that you are not alone. Many have walked this path before you, and many are walking it now, quietly, without banners or claims. If you feel called, stay with us. Subscribe to the channel, not for content, but for companionship on the path. And if you wish, write this in the comments as a reminder to yourself. I am willing to walk, to see, and to burn. Until the next meeting, my friend, may your lamp guide you, may your heart witness, and may the fire recognize you as its own.